Welcome back everyone. I'm here in my workroom again for part 2 of the game cleaning video, and I'm going to show you how to open up a few different cartridges here. Generally they're all pretty much the same, but there are a few nuances here and there. But let's start with some NES games, and we've got a copy of Gyromite here. This is an early NES release, and in the back you'll notice it has 5 screws. Some earlier NES releases have the 5 screws in them. As you notice, you got 1, 2, 3, and then your 2 up top here. Now, all the 5 screws I've seen have this type of screw in them, which is it's a different kind of screw. It's got 2 indentations on either side, and in the center it almost looks like you could take it apart using an Allen key, but you can't. But luckily it's really easy to get these out with just a flathead screwdriver. So you just remove your 5 screws and you just lift the back off and pull out your game and clean it. Easy enough. Now move on to what most NES games are going to be like, and that is 3 screw. And it's also going to have a game bit screw. Most of your NES games are going to open up using this smaller game bit. So basically what you do, and instead of having the 2 screws up top, people are familiar with the little tabs that are in the game cartridges. And that's what they did instead of using screws. So basically you just remove your 3 screws, and then what you want to do is lift from the bottom and pull towards you to try to keep from breaking these. You don't want to break them off, but that is how you open up an NES game. Pretty simple. Next we're going to move on to Super Nintendo. Pretty much the same story here, except for they moved the screws to the front, and there's just 2 of them. They are also a small game bit. I have never seen them use another type of screw head on an SNES game. So you just remove those 2, and as you can see it has 2 similar tabs up here on the top, and you just want to lift from the bottom, pull towards you once again. That's how you open up a Super Nintendo game. Now we have an N64 game. It's kind of different. Screws are moved to the back again, and they're on the top, and there's 2 of them. Also small game bit, never seen a different type of head used on these N64 games. And the tabs are on the bottom. So what you want to do is remove these 2 screws, and then just lift up the top and pull away from you to try to keep from breaking these tabs off. However, inside here, let me show you what you're going to find. It's with Super Nintendo and the Nintendo games, when you open them up, all that's in there is a PCB. That's all you're going to find in there. But inside these N64 games, when you open them up, you are going to find an RF shield. And all you need is just a Phillips head screwdriver, and you move these 2 Phillips heads, and then you've got this plastic locator here that slides over the cartridge. Now, the easiest, it's only going to go in one way, and just remember that the cartridge, when you put it back in, the chips are always facing towards you. Label is down, chips towards you. That's the easiest way to remember that, but and that's how you put it back together, just in reverse. Easy enough. Now let's look at Genesis cartridges. Now this is that copy of the Jungle Book that will not work. I have cleaned this thing 3 times with isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips, just without opening it, just, you know, the standard way that people tell you to do it. And it still won't work, and that was the case with every single one of those games. And since I have run into this issue with games, I have decided that any game that I get, regardless of whether it says it's been professionally cleaned or whatever, I don't care. I open the game up and I can clean it the way I'm going to show you here in a minute. Now, another thing I want to talk about is cleaning usually will solve about, I would say, 99% of your problems. when a game or a system doesn't work clean the system, clean the game. Those are the first things you should do if they're not working. Because it's cheap. It's cheap and it's easy to do, and normally it will fix it because cartridges and cartridge-based game systems, they're pretty resilient. They really take a lot of effort to try to destroy. Granted, capacitors burst and resistors burn out, and you can have problems, and you can have a legitimately buggered up system that will require repair, or a cartridge that just isn't worth repairing. Toss it and get another one. But that's very rare. Cleaning them generally fixes them, and a good example is after running into this issue recently where a lot of games just weren't working until I cleaned them like this, I decided to go ahead and clean all of my cartridge games in my collection using this method. And my NES, it's all original. It's never been cleaned. It's never had the 72-pin connector replaced. The lockout chip has not been bypassed. I've not cleaned the connector, refurbished it by bending the pins up. Nothing. It's never been touched since it was opened back in the 80s. But it's always had issues playing games as long as I can remember. You know, putting them in, it's flashing, and even when you stick in games and pull them out, they generally don't have a lot of resistance. So it's like there's not a lot of pressure from the pins when you put the games in. And after cleaning all of my NES games, all of them work first time every time now when I put them in. Without fail. You push the power button, the screen loads up, works perfectly fine. So that just goes to show you, clean your games and stop blowing in them. Now, opening up Master System, Sega Genesis, and 32X games are all pretty much the same. They all just have 2 screws, but the screws can vary. Most of the time what you're going to see are these larger game bit screws. But I have seen just a Phillips head. I have seen just a regular size 8 Torx. I've seen what these are, which is a security Torx. It's a Torx with an indentation in the center, so you can't just use a regular Torx. And you can see I've got a set of them right over here. Now, I spent $4 on these from Lowe's, and the only one I needed was this size. Actually, I think this is a Torx 8. No, this is a Torx 10. I'm sorry. So this is a Torx 10 security bit. But you'll also see just a regular Torx 10, not a Torx 8. I'm sorry, that's smaller. But and then I've also, on some earlier Electronic Arts games, I've seen a weird security bit with 3 indentations in a triangle on the edges, and I've not been able to open those. I haven't found a bit that opens those. It's very odd looking. But most of the time you'll see the larger game bit, and it's just a really simple matter of you've got a security bit here for this one. This is Torx. Move your screws and lift the back straight off, and there's your game. And oh my gosh, yes. Looking at this thing, I can understand why it doesn't. Excuse me, why it does not work. Oh my gosh, this is disgusting looking. I can tell this thing's been blown on. It's got tons of corrosion on it. You can't really see it on the camera. It is really bad. It's no wonder it cannot read it. But this is the product of blowing in your games. It's just really gross. But we are going to clean it by doing this. We're going to start with our game cleaning paste, which really is more of a liquid than a paste, but you give it a shake, open it up, and Q-tip here and just dip it in, get it nice and saturated. Now just get it on there and start scrubbing away. And I can already see there's you probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a good piece of corrosion right there that's not coming up that a lot of people would think they need to take sandpaper to. We're going to get that off. But, so I'm applying a little extra pressure to get some of these spots of corrosion off that are on this thing. But, and you can see the black that's coming up on this Q-tip here. Just keep going until you get it nice and shiny where those contacts look like metal again and not all dull and covered in what looks like crap. It's just really gross, but it's looking a little bit better. So let's flip this over, get the other end dipped in here, and go to these contacts. Just rub back and forth until you get them all nice and clean. And you only really need to apply as much pressure as you need. I mean, you don't really need to, you know, push down on these things as hard as you can. It's really not coming too easy. There we go. And I am applying a little bit more pressure just because of how dirty these things are. Ugh, it's just really nasty. Let's go back here and make sure there's a couple of spots because there's. I just want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here, but my hand's not in the way. But that looks a heck of a lot better. Alright, toss that in the garbage. And now what you want to do is clean this crap off with some rubbing alcohol. Now, like I told you yesterday, I like 99%. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I've gotten a lot of games that have claimed to be professionally cleaned. And when you open them up, you can tell there's what was metal polish of some sort was used, and it's just, you can see it on the PCB, it's not been cleaned off properly. So, when you see games that say they're professionally cleaned, don't necessarily believe them, but you know, just dip it in your isopropyl here, and I just put this in a little bottle so it's easier to get to rather than that big one, but you know, you just, there's still a little bit of crud on that pin right there. And look how much dirt's still all over in that polish that was on there. Flip it over, other side. So no wonder that this stuff couldn't make a dent in that, but toss that in the garbage. And now, get one of our cloths here that I was telling you about, and I just give it a quick wipe on both sides. Now I fold it over and really apply some pressure as I dry this, and just go to town. And look at that, you're still getting dirt off. So, I mean, I just keep doing it until it's not coming up with dirt, or very little dirt. You may have to even take some polish to this again after doing this. Just take a look and see if you get the corrosion out, but this side's looking pretty good. This side's looking a little bit mostly better, but I think we need to go over it again. It was a lot worse than the front. And you can still see some spots of corrosion on this pin right here. This second pin looked pretty bad. So we're going to apply a little extra pressure. Just trying to get that corrosion up. I mean, as you can see, it's still, you know, got some black stuff coming off, and that is the corrosion. So That's pretty dirty. It's just disgusting, but and I'm just going to quickly do the other side again, because might as well. We've got to clean one side, might as well get them both again. Get as much of that off as you can. Toss that in the garbage. There we go. That's looking much. Look at that. Look at that. All that crap is coming off, and ugh, it's just gross. How dirty these things can get, and no amount of isopropyl alcohol is going to take care of that on its own. Alright, I think we're good here. Yeah, we're good. Now, with these, you don't have to throw this away. This is still usable. You can use these. I've used these for, you know, probably 4 or 5, up to 6 games. Clean them off, you flip them over. Just don't keep using the dirty part. But, yeah, so just so you don't go through those like air. And then, just don't any dust or anything like that out. And now when these go back in, and this is with pretty much all of these cartridge-based games, they're only going to go in one way. You can't just, like if I try to put this in the wrong way, it doesn't fit because it's offset. So, just drop that back in, place the back on, change that to tighten, and tighten them up. Now when you tighten these screws, especially with Nintendo games, Sega games don't seem to be as weak on these screw points, but this is not the wheel on your car. You don't need to torque this down to 95 foot-pounds. Just tighten them down and just get them a little bit snug. These, the Super Nintendo, NES, the N64 games, I've gotten them with stripped out screws and they strip out very easily. It doesn't take much force to strip those. So just be careful when you're tightening those screws back up. Just snug, they don't need to be torqued down really tight. So let's head back into the game room and let's pop this in and give it a test to see what happens. We'll see you guys in there. Alright, we're back again in my game room. So let's go ahead and pop this in and see what happens. Right off the bat, works like a charm. I'm telling you, just clean your games the proper way and you don't have to worry about things. I highly suggest opening up every game that you have that's a cartridge-based game and cleaning it this way. And you probably will never have to do it again if you take care of your games, store them properly, and stop blowing on them. They'll just work unless there's something physically wrong and they need repair. And that's when you go from there and figure out, is it a burst capacitor? Is it a burnt out power supply? What is it? So anyhow, that is how you clean your games properly. So if you got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. You want to comment on something you don't think I did right? Yeah, comment down below. Please share this video. I'm not getting a lot of feedback from people, and I'm doing these videos to try to help the community and try to be a part of the community. And if nobody wants to watch them, well, I really don't want to make them. So share these, subscribe, like them. You know, comment, let me know what I'm doing right, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. But yeah, we'll see you next time. Next video is going to be a pickups video, and after that, probably do that overview on the Sega Genesis. So we will see you this Friday or Saturday when I upload the pickups video. Thanks for tuning in.